So Republicans and even many Democrats now love to complain about big tech. Oh, Facebook, Google, Amazon, and Apple, they're bad. Everyone hates them. That's what they tell you in public, but in secret, a lot of them are taking an awful lot of money from these same companies. Who's taking the money and what are they doing with it? Well, the American Principles Project has got the numbers. They found that many left-wing organizations and dozens of supposedly conservative groups are in fact funded by Silicon Valley. Who are they? Well, those groups include the Heritage Foundation, the Brookings Institution, and the Federalist Society. Jon Schweppe is the Director of Policy and Government Affairs at the American Principles Project, a project that actually has principles. We're delighted to have him join us tonight. Jon, thanks a lot for doing this research and for telling us about it. So groups that a lot of our viewers send their money to in hopes that those groups will defend them are in fact also taking money from Facebook and Google and Apple?
Right. No, there's a lot of these conservative groups, pro-free market groups, and they're on the take. And this is kind of an open secret here in Washington. But up to this point, there hasn't really been research to show how broad this is. And we found more than 400 organizations, academic centers, etc., groups that have a great deal of influence on Capitol Hill, all taking money from Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple. And of course, with that money comes the willingness to launder those companies' talking points and promote their preferred policies. And obviously this has an effect. It certainly has an effect on the Democrats, but we've found it has an effect on Republicans in Congress. Those canards you hear about how these are just private companies, they can do whatever the heck they want. Well, those are Google talking points. Those are Facebook talking points. And, it gets laundered through this ecosystem. And that's how these companies have major influence in D.C.
But I mean, this just seems like the definition of corruption. I mean, if you found out that National Right to Life was taking money from Planned Parenthood or PETA was taking money from the pork producers, you would say, whoa, wait a second, that's corrupt. Why haven't we seen news stories pointing out that these groups are clearly, at least ideologically corrupt? I mean, by definition.
Well, I think there's an effort underway to try to promote that kind of transparency, but it is the mainstream media. A lot of these media outlets are also funded by big tech companies. And don't forget the politicians as well. I mean, and the politicians as well. They're funded by these groups, these organizations, these companies as well. And that obviously has an impact on what's happening in Congress. Republicans, we see it all the time. Republicans in committee hearings, they might even take off their jacket and pound on the table to tell you how mad they are about big tech. But then, under the table, they're trying to kill like the bills that are going to be before the House next month to break up big tech. These are Republicans that, ostensibly are preaching to their base they're doing something about big tech, and they're not. They're trying to do the opposite, actually.
Yeah, it's like the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, or the Atlantic magazine, which is owned by Steve Jobs' widow, one of the biggest shareholders at Apple, are actually going to report on this. They're not going to indict themselves. I mean, it's kind of a closed system, isn't it?
Right, and this is what happens when you have trillion-dollar companies, taking the lead in every sector of society.
It's scary. Thank you. Jon Schweppe, I appreciate it.